You are tuned to WHUS Storrs, and we bring you the voice of the cosmos, Sun Ra. This is a great pleasure and honor to bring Sun Ra to our station live on the air. And I'd personally like to thank Sun Ra for consenting to come to the planet Earth to assist in the joy of being and the general wake-up call of the human race. Sun Ra, is there anything that you'd like to open our little message with?
Well, I would say I was trying to wake America up in one sense, but the rest of the world is waking up as awoke now. In England, there's an organization called Sun Ra, for health center, holistic principles, and other things. In fact, and the people who put it up are a conglomeration of nations like the Japanese, the Germans, and the Chinese, and probably Indians too. All these different nations realize I'm doing something else besides just plain music. I'm doing something else of value to humanity. So they put this organization up in London, Sun Ra Health Center.
That's fabulous, Sun Ra. I think that's a wonderful idea, Sun Ra Health Center.
Is that open right now and in service?
It's been over there since February. I just found out about it today. Someone sent me a pamphlet on it.
It's a real nice message to have come around your arrival day anniversary.
Right.
It's great because I've always felt that the vibrations that your orchestra has produced has been very healing in itself. Just going to a concert is a healing experience for me and many of the people that I bring along. So I think a health center is a perfect idea, and perhaps they could even play your music in the center. I think it would be greatly aiding in the healing of anybody that goes in there. Sun Ra, you recently performed a symphony in Paris, and I was wondering if you were planning on performing that again, or working with strings anymore.
Some people are talking about it at the Lincoln Center in New York City.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I personally like to hear that quite a bit.
And the culture minister is talking about sending the French musicians over here from Paris, the ones who performed it.
Oh, so there were more musicians besides the orchestra that performed that?
Yes. They were symphonic musicians from Paris. It wasn't done in Paris, it was done in Orleans.
Oh, okay, that's great. Let's see. I once saw a performance where you had like 63 musicians, and it was had billed as 100 musicians. I was wondering if you ever planned on working with that many musicians again.
Yes. Well, through the French government, they're very interested in large numbers of musicians. They're interested in what I'm doing. They tried some things with some composers, but it didn't work because they didn't have enough creativity. That's not what the French were. They wanted the real thing. So they was talking about me coming down, staying on the Mediterranean.
I've got a question for you about John Murphy here, a question about jazz radio. Since you've been over 35 years with the same basic ensemble, how helpful has the radio medium and jazz radio been to you? And are there any changes you've noticed over the decades about how sensitive radio is to these messages and this music?
I've been playing the low profile principally because I realize I'm doing something totally different. And this planet resists innovations, certain segments of it.
So you felt that radio perhaps wasn't really useful for you because you didn't have access the way you would like? Would you like to have more access?
Well, that would be all right, but I never sought to be a leader because I don't think leaders have too good a chance on this planet.
Well, that's... Now, is that a note of encouragement or a note of discouragement for our listeners trying to look to the 90s and the next century with some sense of hope and not perhaps despair as to what's gone down before?
Oh, no, I've planted a lot of seeds of something really worthwhile for humanity, and they will grow.
How about the issues the last year or two? There's been a lot of issues over censorship of the arts, and your song Nuclear War, which is now a good 6-7 years old, you had trouble with censorship back then. How do you feel about the situation today with that issue of freedom of speech and access for messages and artists?
Everything is getting ready to change because there are some more forces on the planet now, but you know, they always do things from the east, and they started something over in Turkey.
A while back.
They've been in communication. Turkey's been in communication with some Arab space people ever since 1984.
84.
Istanbul. And when I went there, they gave me some of the manuscript, because these space people said they were able through the computers, through the satellites and the computers, to reach them through their frequencies. And they told them a lot of things about the future and about humanity has to change. The man has to change and become a genuine human being.
Can you share some of that message that you got? Some of the words, some of the thoughts?
They said that the people on this planet have the wrong impression of God.
You mean they try to personalize it? Is that part of the mistake?
They said that out in space you got a lot of empty space out there, nothing is there. Every now and then you hear a big bang, and the big bang is God creating another universe. He doesn't create one planet, he creates a whole universe. And they said they got a multiplicity of universes out there that know nothing about one another. When the big bang comes, that means that for them to stay out the way, they don't get into those places. When the big bang comes, they flee for safety, I presume.
Speaking of the Big Bang, I have to ask you how you felt about the situation in the Middle East that happened this last winter and how nasty it got. Here we are into the 90s and we're still breaking out massive warfare machines. Does this give you hope that perhaps the Big Bang for us will be a clarifying event, or do you feel that we're still indulging ourselves and violent thinking is still dominating the way we solve our problems?
Everything is changing. There's some more folks that have controls of the rulers of the world. They're not saying anything about it, but they're definitely under control in a lot of instances. They're going to change. These other beings are going to change the planet. The ones got in the church in Istanbul say they're going to change. They've been told by Almighty God to tell men the truth. And they got this book which hadn't been published yet, this manuscript they gave me. They started with talking about the origin of existence, things like that. They said that Darwin was right, but he didn't have a complete picture.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you on the phone.
They said that Darwin was right about evolution, but he didn't have the complete picture. They said they got the complete picture. And as far as flying saucers are concerned, that's them they call a flying disc. They said they've reached such a high technology until they can make that ship invisible. And if you send radar up there, it goes right through the ship. No bounce back. So you can't track them. So on other planets there are some people, but they got this signs of invisibility, and when man comes up near those planets, they make it all invisible so we can't see it.
Closer than we think, perhaps.
Right. They make it look like nobody's there.
Well, it almost sounds like your music, Sun Ra. It sounds like the things that you do in your concerts. You practically build spaceships and take people on travels throughout the galaxy.
Yes, I always have felt that way, you know. I realize I'm a good distance ahead of people, so then I have to come down and make clarified even more. But that'll do away with my low profile, which I really love. Artists like low profiles.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're so happy you were able to join us today, because it's not an everyday thing for us to be able to have these few words together. Let me ask you a couple of questions on a more earthly side about the record industry, if I could shift a little bit. You've had some recent releases on A&M that are getting pretty broad distribution and some good reviews. Are you finding that the industry is more open now and you're getting more support and more sales, and that's going to help you with more financial resources to keep on going?
Well, Black Saint has done a lot, too.
Yes, that's true. I heard that you had a third album. Bob wanted us to ask about a third Black Saint release. Is that in the works?
We have 2 more coming out on Black Saint.
You'll be happy to hear that. Is there anything musically that you could let us know? For example, are you going to have on recording some of these larger string ensembles, the work that Richard referred to that you did in Orleans? Some of that string material going to get down?
Yes, I'm going to do something on synthesizers, too.
Well, that's one.
To be able to clarify a lot of things about what I represent, because I can express what I really feel. It's sometimes difficult to teach musicians who've been trained on the earth plane to play what I want played.
Well, that's great, Sun Ra. I'd like to hear as much recorded material by you as possible, and I think that the entire universe can use it at this point in time.
Since you're working with so many young players, are you finding players today more open than maybe 10, 20 years ago? Are you finding more people willing to try to forget labels and try to forget pre-assumptions when they come into you and try to get in?
What I have to do, find musicians who don't know anything now. Because the ones who know things are just going to play what's been played before. But the ones who don't know anything are open for learning something.
So how does it feel to be back on the road now? A few months ago, we had some hard times, and we were very happy to be able to be up in Northampton when you had that concert a few months ago. During the course of the program today, we're going to send you a tape of this show.
I just came back from Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta, Georgia, and Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Feels good to be back out.
Yeah, I just come back. It was a short tour. We started in Washington, D.C., and then went to
Okay, Sun Ra, before we close out, is there any words that you'd like to send out to our listeners? Anything at all that you'd like to say would be perfectly fine with us.
Well, I just tell them the impossible is getting ready to happen. Something better for humanity.
Well, that's great, Sun Ra. I'm glad to hear that, and I hope you continue to prosper and your music continues to have a wider release throughout the world. And I want to thank you again for just consenting to join us on this planet, because I know it was not an easy decision for you, and you've done a great service for all of us. And I thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
All right.
Thank you very much for being with us today. Farewell.